Hey there, ZestyBoyz, and welcome back to the Zesty Podcast. My name, of course, is Tony Shire.
I'm Maggie.
And I'm Sean.
Wow, we got a new guest today.
Yes, we do.
First time in a long time. The goal of this episode is just to steamroll Maggie so that she can't get a single word in.
Great.
So, Sean, we need I'm going to come straight out with the hard questions.
Great.
The hard-hitting.
Bring it on.
I need to know what your qualifications are to talk about the cruise and hospitality industry.
Like
So
what gives him the right?
give me your resume.
My resume. I studied hospitality in college, graduated in May.
What college did you go to?
I went to UCF, Rosen College of Hospitality Management. Pretty highly ranked program, but it was just really cool because I've worked in hotels and actually briefly on a cruise ship as well. But that was my whole passion growing up. As Maggie is nodding her head, yes. But that's always what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the cruise industry. I wanted to work on ships. And then, of course, hotels are basically the same thing, but on land. So I studied that route because I was back and forth between if I wanted to go the maritime route and become like a captain on the cruise ship and work, navigation, all of that side of it, or if I wanted the people route. And I was so indecisive, like when choosing colleges. So that was a whole process, but
There were
ultimately
also very stark differences.
Oh, yeah.
Maritime was snow, kind of military.
Yeah.
Rosen was Disney
Right,
World,
it's all happy.
sunshine.
Yeah, the hospitality school was a lot like more sunny and personable versus the maritime academies are really military style, not that many.
Maritime law.
Right, exactly, up in the north, which I'm not used to those winters. So it worked out for the best. I met a lot of great people, and I loved the people route of it, the people side of it. I think I'm too extroverted to be, just working on the bridge all day long. But I still have that passion for the cruise industry. And like I said, I did a brief contract. So I got to kind of see briefly the scope of the industry, like on a personal basis, which was really nice. I definitely, when the world recovers, I would like to, I would like to do another contract, but ultimately, I just think that this industry is really exciting. I think that besides COVID, there's a lot of growth potential still, even though it was booming. So I think it's just something that a lot of people love, but there's a lot of complex factors as well. So I don't know. It just fascinates me. It's the thing I can geek out about.
So are you allowed to talk about where you work now, or is that classified?
Oh, great question.
If not, it's okay.
I think I'm allowed to.
I think so. Did you sign any?
I didn't sign
I'm his
NDAs.
agent, so
Okay,
fine.
I work at the Four Seasons down in Orlando, so it's a very nice property. And I've worked at a lot of different hotel properties in Orlando, and it's really
Can't
cool.
be named.
Yeah, I won't name the past ones, but I really love my company now, so that's great. But it's cool because I worked for so many different hotel brands and the cruise ship brands. So working and studying hospitality at the same time, like seeing all these different brands, it's really cool because you get to know like everyone's different, but I like company culture, things like that. I like when it's like service focused culture. So from both the employee standpoint, from the guest standpoint, and from someone that's studying all of it, it's really cool to work for a company that I'm like, wow, this is seen as one of like the mass leaders of the industry. And especially I think that does translate to the cruise industry as well, even though they're not exactly the same brands that we know like Marriott and all of that. But there's different cruise lines, and a lot of people don't understand with the cruise line companies is it's basically major like parent companies and then the sub flag companies. So you have Carnival Cruise Lines that owns like almost the majority of the market. So that's basically like the Disney of cruising. So even though Disney Cruise Line itself, that's a minority kind of cruise line. It's a little smaller of a percentage because they have so little ships. But basically, I think if I were to go back and do another cruise contract, I would approach it from like the culture aspect of what does the company stand for in terms of, crew members' culture, what they, offer for their guests, and what makes them differentiated in terms of the products.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you tuck your wire under the little base, it'll keep it from rotating.
I didn't even know it was rotating on us.
It's okay.
Just wanted to dance.
I know. I forgot to let you know. That's my bad. So does Four Seasons, if you have this insider info, / if it's already a thing, please enlighten us. Is there going to be a Four Seasons cruise line eventually?
I'm not sure. That would be awesome. I know competitors are starting kind of yacht fleets.
Ritz-Carlton.
Are you allowed to talk about what you talked about at dinner?
Oh, yeah, well, that's...
the murders?
The murder. What story were you telling? Four Seasons actually has a private jet line, which is announced. So you can do different itineraries around the world.
How does that work? Because I feel like with cruises, a lot of the fun is that you're on the boat during the cruise, but people kind of hate plane travel.
I think it's just the excitement of being able to be connected to so many places in like that short itinerary. So I think it's...
So the plane's more just like the bus that takes you to the cool
yeah,
places.
it's an
I'm also
all-inclusive
sure it's
thing.
like a very fancy
Oh
plane.
yeah. I'm not saying it's like a bus.
It's quite
but,
different than, the Delta
But
economy class.
the plane's not the fun part. The fun part is how connected you are to a bunch of different countries.
Because the whole
whatnot.
premise behind it is you have all of these people that love the company of Four Seasons. They're loyal guests. They love all the properties. These people likely have had the chance to travel all around the world. So their mindset is we've done basically all of the typical tourist things. So we've seen the Wall of China. We've seen... we've gone to Disney's Magic Kingdom, done all the rides. We've seen, the Golden Gate Bridge, but we want to see more authentic experiences that are a little bit deeper.
More human
and crafted,
experiences.
Yeah, and crafted for you. But of course, they want that personal touch where it's the luxury service where everything is kind of taken care of. Luxury can be defined as the absence of worry, as one of my professors said, which I like. So they basically craft these experiences so it's all like super top tier, super creative, exclusive experiences. So you'll have like the top chef in each city, like serving your dish.
Cool.
Yeah, and you'll get the whole
wish
point
I had
of
money.
it, right?
The starting price is just $40,000.
Yeah,
$40,000. How many?
I don't know if I can necessarily afford to go in these jets, but
What does the $40,000 get you? How many countries?
But
well,
It's like,
how long is
it's
the
20 days
excursion?
minimum.
I think it's
20
like
days.
20 nights, or it can go up from there. I don't know the exact lengths, but I know that basically the
It's
rule is you
2,000
can
a
stay
night?
every single night in a different Four Seasons property. Maybe some you'll stay multiple nights, but
Man, being rich sounds fun.
it's not like you have to do layovers like laying in the airport. You'll be comfortable.
Yeah. I have a little game that I want to play with you,
Ooh,
Sean.
how
Manager, please be
exciting.
quiet.
Why am I in the middle? I could have just sat out there.
Okay, so the game is smash or pass.
Okay.
You have to say smash or pass. Do you know what both mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have just a split second to answer each. I'm gonna ask
All right.
you, just give you different properties, different hotel brands, and you
All
just give me
right,
smash
let's
or
do it.
pass, and we'll dive into it afterward.
Okay.
Holiday Inn Express,
Pass, unless it's on the beach.
Econo Lodge,
Econo Lodge pass.
Marriott
Smash.
Smash.
Sure.
All right. The Ritz Carlton.
Smash.
Okay. Best Western.
I did professor work for that. Oh, gotta be quick. Pass.
Pass. Red Roof Inn.
Red Roof Inn, I'll pass.
Pass.
I like red though.
You like just the color.
Just the
red in
Red's
general.
a nice color.
Drury Inn.
Smash. I think they have good company culture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's all the hotels that I know. So what? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead,
Is
manager.
it-
You get your one word.
Isn't Ritz-Carlton a part of Marriott?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, like I said with the cruise lines, like they all have the parent companies. So Drury Inn actually is a family company, but I know like
So
Marriott
like
will
it's
own all
its
the
own
brands.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't know about them, and I learned a little bit about them. But I know each one has like their own culture. But when you have like the Holiday Inn, it's part of IHG. When you have Fairfield Inn, part of Marriott. So it's like all different brands, but they each offer different things. So I guess each
What's
person's different.
IHG's like pinnacle flagship hotel?
Hilton?
Well, oh gosh, I forget what their luxury brand is.
Kimpton?
Kimpton actually is their boutique brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they merged
So
with them.
boutique is like smaller luxury
Yeah,
hotels.
it's like
Yeah.
smaller, which I like. I think it's more personal. Like everyone's looking for different stuff, but yeah, I like the boutique side of it. But like Marriott's luxury brand is Ritz Carlton, like Maggie said, so that's pretty cool.
And they have the JW also. Which
JW
is that
nice.
considered luxury or is that?
Yeah, I would say it's an upscale. So basically, you have the Marriott, and it's like an upscale Marriott, and then Ritz Carlton is definitely the higher
The
luxury,
luxury,
the
okay.
highest it will go. Yeah.
What's Econo Lodge's parent company?
Oh gosh.
Are they their own entity?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
They're kind of like a disease. They just kind of keep popping up, and you can't get rid of them.
Just see them on the billboards.
So when you said Drury Inn is a family company, what does that mean in hotel terms?
I just know that they tabled at my college a lot, so I learned quite a bit about them.
Alright.
I think that they like operate like as a standalone entity, and they they kept saying they had vertical integration.
Oh,
So
isn't that
basically,
illegal?
no, it's like basically like everything in their like hotel they make. So which you're like, oh, okay,
Oh.
but like the desk, they built that, like their company, they built that, like they own all the construction materials to build their
I
hotels.
thought that
all
was
the
illegal. I
food.
thought that's like monopolies and stuff.
does
Like
seem
I'm not
vertical
sure how it works.
That's
but I
why
was just
they're a
like,
family.
You're exposing them.
Right.
It's a mob family that owns it.
I was like, oh, okay. So yeah.
And the Rosen College was very close to being called the Disney College,
It
wasn't it?
was.
And Rosen outbid
the Rosen-
Mr.
yeah.
Walt or the Disney
Mr.
company.
Walt.
So, for those that aren't familiar, Harris Rosen is the person that donated to UCF. I think it's like $17 million. It was quite a bit, a big check to UCF in order to expand the existing hospitality program. This was back, in the late 1980s, early 90s. And then basically they were expanding the program. It was on our UCF main campus, which is northeast Orlando. But basically, thanks to this donation from Harris Rosen, they built a standalone campus in the heart of like the hospitality side of it, totally different side of Orlando. So it's basically, I think, still the largest standalone hospitality campus like in the world.
Really?
Just for hospitality. So that's pretty cool. But basically, when he donated that money, the state of Florida matched that. So it was about $35 million to build the campus. And it's really nice. Looks like a resort. But in this whole process of trying to figure out, the donor thing, I know that it said that Disney was interested in getting their name, but this was before actually Disney College program was started. They have their whole separate thing with the internships, getting into Disney. So that's actually pretty interesting because one of the founding, I believe the person that founded Disney College program actually ended up being associated with Rosen College. I'm not sure in what capacity, but it's cool because all this history, with Disney and Rosen, it all changed kind of what the scope of the college would be. So I'm sure if it was a different name on the, the sign, it may have attracted a whole different clientele versus with the Rosen name, it's pretty cool because he's a hotelier in Orlando, but it's just an Orlando brand. So you can get the people that are interested not just in theme parks, not just in hotels. You get the people interested in events.
I think it would be not necessarily more competitive. I mean, it'd be more competitive for admission, but not necessarily the right kind of people if it was called the Disney College.
Yeah, it would just be, I think it would just be a different, theming and just
Disney
mood.
College program.
Not that it would be bad or worse. It would just be a different feel. But yeah, so it's cool because I liked my college because you could focus on a lot of different things. And that's why I ultimately went to it because...
Had a strong business aspect.
Right, because I went to school for hospitality management, but it couldn't necessarily extend to cruise industry as well. And I've met people from the cruise industry through that. And I have friends that worked with event management because we have a really good event management program. So they're trying to put on events, working with right across the street is the second largest convention center in the country.
Orange County Convention Center.
Yes. So that was pretty cool. So they're in with that and they work all the different events around Orlando and around the country. And then you have people with our newest degree, entertainment management, kind of developing the entertainment side of it as it relates not just to theme parks, but outside the industry as well. So kind of getting creative where hospitality intertwines with the rest of the industries, especially right now when hospitality industry is a little hurting. Yeah. It's nice to think that, hospitality can be outside the box as well.
So like with lots of different degrees and whatnot, there are top schools in the country and world to go to for said program. Where would you say like the top hospitality schools that one could go to are?
See, I think that rankings can be like a little bit tricky because everyone's different. Like I was looking for very specific things, but of course anyone else may be looking for stuff as well. Like we have these rankings and I know that every year there's like the Shanghai rankings, the different, world reports that, publish who are the best hospitality schools, and it will break down, undergraduate, master's, PhD, which we have like all of those levels at Rosen as well. Of course, one of the major competitors and well-known programs, pretty much one of the Cornell. Yeah. So basically, the study of hospitality as a formalized, college education is more recent. So until like the 80s, there weren't too many programs besides Cornell, which was, I want to say is it like 100 years? It's been a while. It's been a minute with Cornell. So they've developed their programs and they have a long-standing, really good name recognition with that. And of course, they're like the Ivy League and they have all that going for them. But with Rosen developing so fast and with them being in Orlando and such a booming destination, one of the top destinations in the world, basically right there in the tourist district versus Ithaca, New York, there's not too much tourism happening there, so it's kind of Rosen's benefit to expanding so fast.
Yeah.
Is that they're right in the heart of your element, so that kind of works to that advantage. Because for my preference, I like the hands-on learning, the learning by internships and experiences. For my education, like for the coursework, you had to do 3 fully paid internships like throughout your college experience. So you had to go out in the industry, and they couldn't be the same thing.
Okay.
So I think that would be a lot more challenging if you weren't in such like a destination place. But if you're looking for more like practical, more research-based learning, I think that could be a program like Cornell, or it could be, somewhere else as well. So I think that there's a lot of different programs throughout the country, and they may not even say hospitality management, because I know when I was researching, it may say hotel and tourism management. It may say recreation park and hotel management. Like the title's sometimes different, but essentially the study of the industry, it's still developing and becoming a little more common. But basically, I would say if people were looking into it, look at what your goal industry or areas that interest you are, and see kind of where those connections could start. Because for me, with the cruise industry, I at least knew that a lot of cruise ships left from Florida, and I like the Florida climate. And basically, if I could get in with the hotels first, and then transfer the skills that I had over to the cruise industry, then that would be my kind of in if I wasn't going the maritime route. So that was my process with that.
Yeah.
So what's a PhD program for hospitality management like?
I mentioned the research. That's a lot more research.
Okay.
So basically, it's normally like other PhDs where you have to do your theses. So whatever that is called, you're going to work on that. You do your dissertation, you do all your coursework, and especially, I know it starts with a master's program where you have, your collaborations, your research with that. But then with the PhD program, it goes a whole nother level. You have your examinations. You'll do the different courseworks. I just remember I had some professors that were in the PhD program, and they said they were constantly like working at it. Like
that thing you had to do for Professor Deb that you turned in 2 months late. Wasn't that mostly research based?
That wasn't research. It was kind of like creating my own portfolio with a company, but I was researching a company. So,
but the research part was what held you back.
Oh yeah, I don't research. I don't mind.
But
he
had a good relationship with the professor, so it was fine.
Yeah, that was an intensive project. It was like
that's just hospitality.
You just turned it in a whole semester later.
It was an 80-page paper, okay, and I wanted to do it right versus rush it. So,
and you're just so hospitable that she lets you do it. Just shows your talent.
Just making memory.
You took a class that was, I'm just going to run through your entire college career. That's all this episode is. So you took a class that was wine tasting?
I
or
did.
Was it just wine tasting, or was it like wine pairings?
I want to say it was wine and spirits of the world. So basically, it was also like a little challenging. So imagine like if you've heard of the sommelier training with that. So it's kind of understanding the basics of wine. Obviously, sommelier training is much more advanced, but understanding where wine comes from to begin with, what's the fermentation process like, the different types of wine. And then you break down, like you said, what it pairs with. So we kind of broke it down each week by regions or different types of wines. So like we had a week for sparkling wines, and we had a week for dessert wines. And then we'll taste different wines. So we'll have wine selections like printed out on a sheet. So it's like, this wine is from Italy. This one is from Australia. And then it talks about the flavorings and things like that. But then we learned like specifics like, what was it? So the German bottles, like it was German or there's different types of bottles. So we learned how to read a wine label, like all the specifics on it and tell you exactly what it means, because sometimes it's broken down, abbreviated, and which information is where. So that way, say you're in a store, you would know kind of, you don't have to be necessarily an expert, but you know what kind of to look for in order to like pair wine and be like, oh, maybe this is a good wine to pick up for my friend to bring over versus, oh, this would not go well with the land that we're having tonight.
Yeah, I wish like if I could pick one thing to like, because I don't like a lot of things, but wine would be that one thing, because being able to just bring a bottle to dinner or
it's
just like talk
it's
over
a good
wine.
Skill.
Yeah.
And honestly, my wine professor mentioned that, we go through the first week and we're like, oh, what is everyone studying? We have some people come from main campus who weren't even studying hospitality.
That's a far
They
drive.
were right, but they were studying business administration or things like
smart.
that, and they would be like, "Why
Oh.
are you doing this?"
For
And
like
we're
business
Network.
lunches.
if
and
essentially like the whole golf idea. It's like if I want to seal a deal, I want to know what I'm talking about when it comes to the wine. You think wine extends
That's
to
a
a
good
lot
idea.
of culture, so
it's good xenia, as the Greeks say, to bring
Right,
bottles of
so-
wine to someone's house.
And on a personal like standpoint, I think that by taking that class, it helped my like palate expand. Like when like you're a kid and you don't want veggies, it helped me because now after that class, I like a lot more red wine because I used to only like just rosé just because it's like sweet and that's what your palate can handle. But now I can handle like a little more of the like more full-bodied wine.
So if I were to give you wine right now, would you be able to tell me what kind of wine it was?
I don't know.
Okay.
Granted, the tasting element was cut a little bit short because of the COVID. That was my last semester.
Okay. Were you 21 when you were taking that class?
Yeah.
Was that a requirement?
Yeah, you have to be 21.
Okay, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was like a taste and spit type
Right,
deal. Or...
you can spit it out if you want, but yeah.
I feel like you were supposed to, but Sean just drank.
you can spit it out.
Well, sometimes it's up to you, but sometimes like the professional tasting is like in the real world, like they have little spit cups because otherwise you're trying like up to like 20 wines.
mixes
Like,
together.
you have to get in the car after that. That's not
Yeah.
safe.
And like the 20th wine, you're not going to be able to taste as well as the first wine if you're
absolutely.
swallowing all of
You're
it.
just like, this is it's the wine.
Is that the only kind of like tasting pairing class you took?
We
or
had
did you
a
take
cooking
a
class.
cooking class?
So we
Okay.
took a food preparation class. There was the lecture component where you kind of learn about the food preparation techniques, and then you have the lab element where you're learning all the different techniques like by hand, like braising, stewing.
Did you
And they
start
were
cooking
really
at home?
critical about
Really?
grading. Like, didn't you get in trouble about the way you?
Well, they're
cut
just
things?
meticulous about how you cut it. So,
Yeah.
you have to do small dice, medium dice, large dice. And you have to for
Julianne.
every dish. Julianne, yes. You gotta prepare your mirepoix and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting because you have your chef walking around. It's a smaller group too, so it's like 4 to a giant station. So by the end of the course, you're not expected to make all these dishes to perfection, but you're expected to at least know the preparation techniques and how to do each one without being told, and how to like follow a recipe and read between like. what
Wasn't
the
your
lines.
chef like super intimidating too?
I feel like all chefs are just a
yeah.
bunch of douchebags.
But also for me in the kitchen, it was a little bit. I don't think that's like a skill that comes to me like naturally.
Did you
Maybe
like
it's just
set
in
the
our
place
blood.
on fire or something?
I didn't set anything on fire, but I will say, like the final exam for that class, we had to do. It was so we make like things throughout the semester, and like you add up a list. But there's some weeks where you're making something on your side of the kitchen, but then on the other side they're making something, and like you're working near each other, and you're supposed to be asking each other, "Oh, what is that like? What is that like?" And you get all your pans, but at the end they took every single item that was made, put it in a little hat, and then gave you 3 things. They're like, "This is what you're gonna make for us. You're not allowed to talk to anyone. You're gonna have to grab all the dishes and pans that we laid out and just figure it out." So we were supposed to be, as we go, paying attention to each of those little things. Well, for my brain, I was like overwhelmed because I definitely paid attention to like the things we were making, but it was definitely a lot harder than I thought it was. When you're like doing it on your own with like no guidance. So by the end, I think I had prepared. I made like, what did I make? I want to say it was like a rack of lambs. So that sounds impressive. I don't know if I could make that again, but I made that. And that one I had actually prepared. But then I was responsible for like handmade mashed potatoes and some type of salad. And like for the salad, we made our own dressings. So, like, made mayonnaise, you get like sugar and all that.
Yeah.
So what was it? Was it mashed potatoes? No, it was mashed potatoes, and then I also had carrots. So it was an interesting mix. But the carrots, I remember like I burnt them or something like that. Those carrots were struggling. So I put it all on the plate, and it was about like the presentation, typical stuff you see on like Top Chef. But
Yeah.
I think they were very gracious with my grade because they could tell it was a struggle. I was like sweating.
Did you start cooking at home more after taking that class?
I felt more comfortable.
You make mac and cheese.
Yeah,
a lot.
I make a baked mac and cheese, but also that's not that intricate.
But you use the recipe. you got
Yeah,
from
yeah.
It's not
So I'm
Stouffer's,
comfortable
so-
with a recipe now, and I still do have like the notes and stuff that I took. So at least I understand. But the whole goal of that class is basically like, say if you're going into the management level hospitality industry, say it's not even food and beverage, you're not even in a restaurant, which that's my case. You at least have appreciation and respect for the work that goes into the kitchen.
Yeah.
You understand the preparation techniques if you're talking about something intertwining with food and beverage. So you have events and you know this, that. Because obviously food is everywhere. So I think it's just, each of those classes come together in a way that you may touch one of these things. It may be not directly related, but somehow it's intertwined with what you want to focus on.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
helps
So,
you build
cool.
respect for everyone.
Yeah,
you're
Yeah.
it's a built respect
Yeah.
and understanding.
If you're managing a hotel and then you're talking to one of the chefs and
Right,
can
you
actually
have to
kind
know
of
your stuff.
level with
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
then they
Exactly.
think of you as a better boss.
right, and you have a little bit of experience. It's not just like the textbook side of it, which is I learned by like hands-on.
You get more of a connection with
Yeah.
your, not necessarily your employees, but with your coworkers and
Right,
everything that
right.
way also.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
yeah.
Have you ever seen an alligator while living in Florida?
Oh gosh.
Well, we all saw one.
I didn't see it the time we drove by though. We were
No,
in the
when
car
we were
together.
we were running.
No,
remember?
that was when he was way
Was the
ahead.
back
Oh
seat?
yeah,
Oh.
no,
Oh.
he was
Oh.
ahead on the 5K, and
You're talking about the Thanksgiving. I thought you were talking about this January.
no, I just meant in general.
Because I don't know if I've seen.
A wild gator.
I'm trying to think. Maybe I finally have. I definitely have not seen as many as you would think. Like not. I've never just stumbled upon and be like, oh, there's a gator. I've always been like told like, oh, there's a gator. Maybe I'm just not observant. Maybe that says that.
I don't think it would be
Um,
good if you did see them. I think you would freak out.
I don't know. In my mind, the only place I don't want to see a gator is if I go to the springs and I'm like kayaking or God forbid like swimming. I don't want to see a gator then.
Did you ever see the video of the guy who was kayaking through this like kind of like mangrove-y type stuff, and there's just like a gator, kind of like not a huge one, but like a decent size, probably 5 or 6 feet, like sitting over here, and it just like swims really hard at him and knocks him out of his kayak.
Oh, gosh.
And he's like, he has like a GoPro and he's like freaking out trying to get back in. But
I've not seen that,
yeah,
but
the
that's gonna be in my nightmares now.
Yeah. I'll get the video and I'll send it to you just so you can see it. 'Cause it comes out of nowhere too. It's just like really fast and just kind of like bumps into him because I guess it thought it was a threat, and then it just tipped him over because he was
See,
in a
yeah, I feel like
flimsy kayak.
gators are like sharks, where it's like they won't mess with you if you don't mess with them. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really that scared of sharks in the ocean as long as I don't see them, because I know like
Yeah,
you have
you
those
know
aerial
they're
shots
there.
where like they're right near you, but like they won't bother you if you don't make a whole scene. Oftentimes, it's just
Yeah.
the rare cases. But like, so the ocean, I'm normally fine if I can see
Yeah.
like the bottom, or like I wouldn't like swimming in like deep ocean. That kind of creeps me out. Even though I love
Yeah.
ships,
Yeah.
the irony in that. But
Just don't sink.
yeah, just
You'll
don't
be
say
fine.
you're good.
Yeah.
I can swim for a little bit.
Lifeboats.
Right.
What's the what's the term? It's like so if on a cruise ship someone's saying, it's like code for the crew to say how dangerous something is, and there's like a certain amount of times they can say something.
Well, it will depend. There's like the medical emergency codes, and then there's the
Like ship sinking.
Yo, that's gonna be oftentimes it's chimes. So
Is
it's
it
gonna be
fi-
7 chimes. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember from my training. Boom, boom, boom.
Because is it just like 3 bells? Like,
boom. It's like a combination of short, like bursts, and then long bursts.
Okay.
And they go through it, like basically when you get on a cruise, they have the muster drill as well. But their crew training is a lot more intensive, where you go through it like every
I
week.
feel like they don't tell passengers
Well,
what
they
the
won't.
sound is for
They're only going to
sinking.
tell you the abandoned ship or the muster things. But then there's also the internal ones for, say, medical emergency, where crew have to be informed, or crew drill. So things like that. So when I briefly worked on the cruise ship, there's obviously the crew drill where you're in port. So they'll alert the guests that we're just having a drill. This is just for crew. But then they'll go through the different sequences. But yeah, there's different codes, and it will depend kind of on the type of ship and what you need. But then there's also the universal ones set by like the
what are words that someone could say over the like loudspeakers that would be like letting people know how letting the crew know how dangerous things are? Because I listened to a podcast once and they were talking about they were on a cruise and someone was just saying they repeated it 3 times and 4 times basically
It
means
may
the
have been
ship's.
alpha.
No, it wasn't Alpha. It was something. It was Tina Fey's, not a podcast, an audiobook.
An audiobook.
yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember that well the code, so I may.
I need you to stall. I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
Here, talk
What
to
do they
him.
do if there's an active shooter on the boat? Has that ever happened?
That's not happened.
Really?
I know.
That hasn't happened yet?
Oh, with on the ship?
Like anywhere?
Not that I know have. Like not a large scale issue. I know a large issue that they had, not really with the cruise industry as much, thankfully, but with the shipping containers.
Yeah.
With pirates at sea. That's a major issue because a lot of times they were restricted on carrying firearms on board, like the
Yeah.
security teams. So they actually have these giant fire hoses, as funny as it sounds, and they would use those
Just to keep
to kind
people
of
off.
so people would be approaching the ship, and there's videos of this if you look it online. So you would have pirates approaching the ship, and they would use the fire hoses to kind of deter them, and then kind of outmaneuver.
Oh,
ship.
Bravo. Bravo.
Oh, Bravo.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I guess Alpha was close.
Yeah. the
One
next
letter
thing.
off. But yeah, so you have those, and you also have the higher technology, which is like these. I don't know if it's like sonar. It's something where it's a hearing frequency, and you point these like laser guns at the little craft, and it kind of makes their eardrums not burst.
Are you
but
talking
like,
about the pirates?
Yeah,
Oh.
it makes their eardrums hurt in a way that they can't focus.
I bet it just
And
makes them burst. You just have to say that. It just makes them go away. It just explodes their eardrums.
But yeah,
They
there's
don't want-
deterrents. But yeah, it's always anything at sea. So say you have any issue, you have fire on board. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
You have security threats like that. It's definitely stuff that they have to plan for. And when say you're building a cruise line, not even shipping container, the first thing you have to establish is the safety aspects. You have to establish how you're going to build this structure. Sure, you want it to be a pretty giant new cruise ship, but you have to figure out how you're going to put the lifeboats. We don't want another Titanic episode.
God, the Titanic is so much smaller than cruise ships.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, too.
And yeah, it's
insane.
just changed so much, like the whole superstructure. Because basically, now you have, there used to be ocean liners built for crossing oceans, but now the ships are not made to cross entire bodies of water unless they're an ocean liner. So it's made for kind of expanding. So if you look at the whole structure, which is the bottom part of the ship, it's changed from being more narrow and tall to being more wide-bodied. So it can fit a wider, berth. carrying
How heavy
capacity.
do you think a keel is on an
Oh.
average cruise ship?
The keel is the bottommost part. So
100 pounds.
Oh gosh. Well, I know the largest class of ship in the world, which is the Oasis Class from Royal Caribbean. Their very first ship. Do you want to guess how heavy it is?
3 million tons.
3 million tons. Okay, well that's an overestimate. No people underestimate. But it's 228,000
Okay.
gross tons, which is still. I think that's a lot.
I think that is a
But it's
lot.
not as much as
I thought it was
mine.
gonna be one of those ones where it's way more than I was expecting. So I shot
but
for
yeah,
the
so you
stars.
have these massive ships, and it's so interesting because not only are they super heavy, oftentimes super wide, so you run into issues at places like the Panama Canal where they had to expand it because these ships don't even fit through anymore. They're so wide. But also they're building them up taller too, so they have like that architectural savvy, the advancements to now do that and make it still somehow float. So you have these ships that are going up 17, 18, 19 decks, but then you run into issues then where you have bridges where they have to cross through from the kind of building plants, manufacturing plants, I should say, or certain ports that they want to reach. And there's videos actually, I think it was the Oasis Class trying to pass under a bridge, I want to say in Germany. And the kind of where the ship was sitting above the water is actually 3 meters. I forget how much it was taller, but it was taller than the bridge it had to pass through. So they were able to somehow lower kind of like the little noses on the gas turbines. So they were able to lower the gas turbines at the very top of the ship. But then also they had to like work the whole physics equation of making the ship go faster so it sank down lower. And it made like the clearance of this ship. Like they have video of like by like this much. It's
Oh my God.
insane. Like this
That's
whole,
crazy.
almost billion-dollar ship is just passing with this much clearance. It's like either the bridge goes, the ship goes. I don't know.
How much does a captain of an Oasis class ship make a year?
Oh,
would
gosh.
you say? If
Most
you had
of
to
them
ballpark-
are like merchant marines.
Yeah.
now,
So to reach the captain position, which is the master of the vessel, you have to go through average at least 20, 25 years in the industry to work your way up to that ranking. So you have to basically start with your Coast Guard, merchant marine license to get that basic training, and then you can be qualified to work on a unlimited tonnage ship. And then you can work your way up with the ranking. So it's all based on experience, kind of like how it is with, aircraft pilots. So you get your hours, you get all of that. But basically you work your way up, third officer, second officer, first officer, staff captain, things like that, environmental officer. So you have all those different positions in the cruise industry. You have to work your way through all of that. And everyone's competing with that. So you basically have to wait a long time. And I know that once you reach that position, I know you're paid a lot for sure, but also I think it's just such a cool job too.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously a lot of pressure. Like it is very demanding. I think any regardless of being in maritime or not, any position in the cruise industry is really hard. You have to be away for a long time. It's a different lifestyle. The work-life balance is almost non-existent, but it's great because of that, because there's the benefits where, like no other place in the world, your team, your co-workers, colleagues, your crew members will become legit family. So you have, where your, typical jobs will be like, we're a family, and you're like, oh gosh, like that's kind of cringy.
Like the Kroger family.
On board, it's really that way because you have no one else. Like you're stuck on board, you can't, oftentimes it's too expensive to call home often, so you're just with each other and you have each other for support. So in my brief time working on board, I saw that with like my own eyes, that you have people from all over the world, from Ukraine to Indonesia to, France and, South Africa and South America, everywhere. You have these people from all over, and they are just the most humble, kind, deserving people in the world. And they are just always willing to help you and listen to you because they all have those same experiences where they're missing their families, whether they're working on holidays or they've been on the ship for 9 months. And they're just desperately wanting to support their families because sometimes they may not have any other choices. And they still manage to put a smile on their face and be strong, and they're there just to uplift other people. Like that culture of everyone being there for each other, like that's why I love the cruise industry, because of course, you have those positions like captain where they're really well paid, but then you have also those positions where that's one of the challenges of the cruise industry. There's inequalities in pay because of nationalities or other factors where sometimes even guests may not realize that these contract lengths being offered to crew members may be extreme lengths, and they may not have access to a lot of different opportunities. And that's one of the things I would like to see improve with the cruise industry is I understand that it's a difference of, opportunities abroad and things like that, but I would like more transparency and equality for, different nations, kind of basically improving the human resources side of
equal pay for
right.
everyone. Yeah.
So I just think that in my experience, like I would like to see a little better treatment of crew members as it comes to, basically the entry-level frontline workers, because without them, the ship could not run. So that's why I love the cruise lines that really stand out and make sure that their team really feels empowered, because it is noticed by the crew members, and you can see when they return to do another contract. And then there's some cases where they can't have a choice and they have to return. But like, that's just basically one of the things I want to see improve with the cruise industry.
What's the work schedule like when you are like one of the lower level positions on the cruise industry?
Well, regardless of your position, you're not going to have a day off until you get off the ship. So it's extremely, extremely rare to have a day off. But basically, it can really vary, but you're going to be working long hours. And oftentimes you will take whatever chance you have, like say you have off time and you just want to sleep, like honestly. And oftentimes you're going to cool places and you may have a few hours off in a port, but your body's telling you, I just want to sleep. But then your mind is telling you, well, in 2 months I'll be off the ship and I'll be missing this place. I might as well go explore. So there's that conundrum. But your schedule can vary. When I was working, it was kind of a split shift setup where I'd work like 7 until 11. And then you have like a 2 hours, 3 hours break, 1 until 4. And then you have maybe 3.5 hours break, and then at dinner 6:30 to 11ish. And then you basically they are regulated by maritime law, so they have to give you, they can't work you more than 18. I forget what it is, the daily limit, but there is a limit for one of the breaks to be no shorter than 6.5 hours, 7 hours, something where you have to have a longer rest period, so that way you can get somewhat of a sleep schedule-ish. And then you have to be given breaks. So it is regulated by maritime law, and it's required that you be able to have those breaks, but they're a lot more rigorous than they would be, say, on land. So it's a long day.
So what do you do for recreation?
They're in my position now.
Oh no, I like
on board.
If you're on board and you're not at a port, it's just
for like leisure. So if you're not at a port and you're on the ship, they do have for the crew. There's crew bars. So
are they like internal ship, like inside or?
Yeah. So the guests can never go there, but it's just a space for the crew to enjoy.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's nice.
Who works those?
They'll have one of the crew members be the bartender there, and of course, the crew members will have to pay. It's a discounted rate, but you'll have to pay. for your drinks. But that's a really nice place for at least crew members to feel some sense of normalcy. And then they'll have some offerings, like there's going to be a crew gym. Of course, it's not like as shiny and fancy as the guest one, but you'll have what's interesting is the kind of dining facilities. They're a little bit different than you would expect from on land. They have to cater, if you think about how diverse the nationalities are on board, they have to cater to all these different nationalities. So the types of food that you'll enjoy will be a lot different than what you expect from, the U.S. standpoint, of course. So it's really cool getting to experience like different cuisines. They'll always have rice, but a lot of different things will be interesting.
I like just like how hospitality is so ingrained into your brain that you said the types of food you'll enjoy, not just what the food they give you or what you eat. It's like, well, the types of food you'll enjoy.
Right. I'm so used to talking to guests. I'm just like,
everything's positive.
Right. I can sell anything to you.
I mean, you could.
So yeah, that's really cool.
Do they have like basketball courts and stuff like that for crew?
It really varies on the ship. So like, of course, with different size ships, you'll have different offerings. Sometimes there's entire decks that are kind of offered to crew members. So sometimes if you're looking at it from the outsider's perspective, one way you can tell is if you have the very front of the ship. So say like the ship has a little point here, like the bow. That's called the front of the ship. Sometimes it's a helicopter landing pad. So that's how you know, okay, no one can really go out there because they have to leave it for a helicopter landing pad. But sometimes if it's like a higher wall and it's like you see just kind of like bluish underneath and like a rim kind of like going out, oftentimes under that rim it's being like a deck space for the crew members to enjoy. Okay. They'll sometimes have hot tubs out there, sometimes small pools. Or another space that you can find that's an outdoor space for the crew members is on the aft, which is the back of the ship, either on a deck just below the bottommost passenger deck. So sometimes it's like blocked off by cages, kind of so you can't really notice. Or you'll have it at the very, very top, up by like the gas turbines. Like there's a deck just around it. So basically, they're not necessarily fully in guest view, but that way crew members can go out, enjoy the sun, kind of enjoy a little bit. And sometimes they may have basketball courts or different things to, feel a little bit of sense of leisure.
Yeah.
But it varies on if you have a large ship with a lot of deck offerings or a smaller vessel, more like a yacht, where it's like every little inch counts. That's gonna be harder.
So has anything like this ever happened to you? My dad was in the Navy, and he was telling me he was just at like a big mall sometime, like while they were in port once, and someone just asked him, "Oh, do you know where like this store is or whatever?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's 2 decks up all the way aft or something like that," just by accident. Just
using
talk, yeah.
I know probably some crew members that when they have those long contracts, it's probably going to be a habit, just saying aft, deck.
Yeah.
Calling the bathroom the head.
The head, the latrine.
So, yeah, I'm sure that's a possibility. It didn't happen to me, but.
Is the captain's quarters like really luxurious, or is it still, or do you not know? Is it a secret?
I have never seen.
Oh, have you never gone like, you don't get like a tour of like.
I've got a tour.
Not their personal quarters, but I've seen multiple ship's bridges, I should say. So the very front of the ship where the navigation happens, yes, I've seen those. So those are very nice. The best part about them is it's panoramic windows, obviously, because they have to see. But I love the part where it extends out over the ocean. So oftentimes it'll be like a glass floor.
Yes. Oh, that's cool.
So cool. And it's really cool if you have the opportunity. Well, oftentimes you will, because it's extra secure when you're in port. So no one's pretty much going to be allowed on the bridge. But when you're allowed to tour, oftentimes it's on a sea day when you're out in the middle of the ocean. So the water is very deep, very, very blue.
Yeah.
So you can see kind of as they show you on their equipment, it will show you like the depth. It'll be something like 20,000 feet or something like that. So hopefully you're not scared of depth, but you can look out and kind of see, the blue. You can sometimes see dolphins under the bow. So that's just a really pretty place. I always... when we go on cruises, would make my sisters turn it onto that channel that has like the navigation page and like plays like smooth jazz and it like shows you where the ship is and like the depth.
But it's also so foggy. It's just a blur.
Right,
you just see rain and you just see the horizon. And like for Maeve and I, it was just a screen.
I thought it was fascinating. Like I could watch that all day long and I could listen to smooth jazz too. That's a side pat, but it was just really good. So I love that part of it. So the bridge is definitely very nice.
But you've never seen any kind of like personal quarters of any of like the high-ranking people?
No, but basically they design it so that at least the captain and many of the officers, they'll be on an upper deck almost pretty much oftentimes the same level as the bridge, if not one staircase away. That way, in the case of an emergency, the captain has to open a door, maybe go down 3 steps, and they're in the bridge. That's a very short commute to work.
Yeah.
In general, in the cruise industry, it's a short commute. You have to be up a few stairs,
Yeah.
but that's a very short. But yeah, so they'll place all the officers very, very close.
Do you think their rooms are pretty nice?
Oh,
or-
I'm sure. Basically, how the seniority, which is interesting with the cruise industry works, is they talk about stripes. So when you see the uniforms when they're wearing like formal, you'll have, the lapels that have the different stripes. So it'll go up to like 6, 7, I forget how many it is. But basically, when you have more stripes, that means you get more privileges on board.
Okay.
So it is kind of like a class system in that regard. It's like the military in kind of terms of that.
Yeah.
But you'll have different offerings. So when you reach a certain level of stripes, one of the major benefits is getting your own cabin. Because when you
Okay.
start off, you'll have shared cabin. So in general, if you're an officer, you're going to have your own cabin. If you're a certain management level, you'll have your own cabin. Maybe some chefs will have cabins. This is that. Oftentimes performers, because they're on a different type of contract, single cabin.
Okay.
Maybe smaller, but with the captains, most likely a suite.
They have a pretty-
yeah,
pretty
very
nice-
large.
pretty
They'll
sweet
have
digs,
office
probably.
connected, full balcony right near the bridge, very high up. Yeah. So
One of the better places to be on. a
right,
cruise ship.
exactly.
What about
So-
cruise directors?
Cruise directors are considered an officer.
Oh,
So
okay.
oftentimes in the cruise industry, so they'll almost always have their own cabin.
So, end of your career, what position would you want to be retiring from?
Oh gosh. Well, that's one thing that I'm considering now with everything just being at a pause. I was interested in going to another contract, so we'll see if that does happen. Just learning more about the industry while I'm young and not have any responsibilities back on land.
Yeah.
And depending on how that works out, I would love to still do that. But if, whatever doors open for me, I think eventually if I do want to start a family or have kind of more of an on-land life with, family and all like that, that's a lot harder to do if you're constantly at sea. So kind of my backup plan, if I still was passionate about being in cruise industry versus lodging, would be shoreside operations. So if I did kind of more the marketing side of it, or maybe human resources, figuring that out.
Yeah.
But basically working in either the reason why I got into the industry. So what made me passionate is seeing those commercials, seeing all the video promotions of new ships and these deck plans and where these port offerings are and all the cool product offerings on board. So all that marketing that goes behind that and excites the next generation of cruisers, that would be really cool to work that. Or on the other hand, if I went to the human resources side and kind of worked to further improve all the crew member morale, the culture of promoting that teamwork, the efficiency, and all of the benefits that are so well deserved for all the crew members around the world. So I think that would be really cool. Kind of giving back to the crew. That would be very nice as well. So who knows? I could work shoreside operations, or if I worked on the ship, I think the entertainment side of it with the cruise director route, that does seem interesting. When I was growing up and always said I wanted to do the cruise industry, people would be like, oh, like a cruise director. Because everyone knows a cruise director,
Yeah.
but there's so many other positions that I always get frustrated to be like, not just a cruise director.
But
But
you
then
would be good
recently
at
I've
it,
been
yeah.
like, oh, that does sound fun. I like that. That fits well. I get it.
I mean, everybody on the cruise
but
knows the
you
director.
can't. You have to work.
Oh,
up
there's a
into
whole
it.
process
Everyone
with
else
that.
doesn't
Obviously, you
realize
can't
that.
just start at cruise directors. It's a whole career path.
How did you feel when I won't say the name, but a character that we met last year when we went to Gasparilla, when the mother figure told you that she was
Just gonna apply.
Yeah.
She was just not in the cruise industry, and she was
because
just gonna apply to be a
because she's
cruise
been
director.
on a lot of cruises.
Yeah, the cruise industry doesn't work like that. I mean, a lot of industries don't work. That's like saying, oh, next
Excuse me,
week
bitch.
I'm gonna apply to be the CEO. That's what I'm gonna do.
I mean, that's kind of how CEOs work, young, fresh hot shots.
Yeah.
Sometimes companies do that.
I don't know.
Get a fresh
they
set
may,
of
but normally you have to work your way up with cruise staff. It's all about many industries, getting to know people, getting in the element, and then through connections, through your own personal development with the company, being familiar with the ships. Because cruise directors, even though it's a lot of fun, a lot of games, you actually have to know quite a bit about the culture of the company, the ship's offerings, every single little detail about the ship, because you're expected to be everywhere.
Yeah,
You have
and
to
you're a
run-
leader on the ship. If
You're
emergency
leading the
happens.
entertainment
Yeah.
department essentially. So you're running all those activities which make the whole ship experience. Without it, it's just basically a ship. You make
Yeah.
it a cruise ship. You make it a whole vacation experience. So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot more goes into it than most
right,
people
right.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up the time we have for this
Ooh.
episode. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
Sean,
you.
and thanks for bringing him.
I did not need to be in this chair.
And
But
thank
your
you so
presence
much.
always welcome.
Make sure to follow Sean. I'll put his Instagram
Oh, so
or
sweet.
everything in the bio or the description, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.